introducing myself. My name is Mona. I'm the founder at Appraised. At Appraised, we are making it possible for people to to break into product management and grow faster as on their product management career. This is why one of the most commonly asked questions we get as people join our cohort is, I have aspirations of working at either an international company or an international country. And so I thought, why not have folks that have done it, who can talk from their own experience. So here we have four folks that are working at. I think the four companies we have are on every single person's dream list, whether in India or abroad. We have Mohit from Spotify, Apurva from WhatsApp, Vivek from Stripe, and Gokul from Volt that recently got acquired by DoorDash. I'll start by giving a little introduction about each of the panelists, and then we'll kind of get right into it. Before that, I just wanted to say we're going to hold off on the Q&A at the end of the session. So we'll leave about 15 minutes at the end of the session. I've often found it very hard to keep track of the session and the chat box. So we're going to disable the chat box for a little bit. Otherwise, just questions keep flying and the flow just gets disrupted. But we'll have 15 minutes at the end. So hold off on your questions and we'll get them answered. Without further ado, I'm just going to start with the introductions. Mohit, I've known Mohit for a bit now. We luckily very randomly met at a WeWork because Spotify's office used to be in the same WeWork that Appraised started with. It's very interesting, the journey that Mohit's had. He is working on product and growth at Spotify. Before that, he was at JioSaavn, so he transitioned from India to, he was originally with Spotify based in Copenhagen, has now moved to London. I also know Apurva because Apurva was a product lead at Interact, which is a haptic product, haptic geo product. Appraised was an early customer of Interact. So I've actually gotten to know Apurva very closely, worked very closely with her. Now she has transitioned as a product manager to WhatsApp based out of London. Vivek, I don't know how to describe my relationship with Vivek, but he was a colleague of my husband at MX Player before this, and has now moved on to Stripe, is based out of Singapore. And Gokul is a dear friend, founder, started as a founder at Crisp and likewise, and now post that was a product lead at Gojek, and is now a product lead at Volt, which is a company acquired by DoorDash. DoorDash is, for those of you, just for context, DoorDash is a public company now, but DoorDash is essentially Swiggy of the US and Europe. So very, very exciting panel. Each one of them have gone through the journey that a lot of our PMs and folks ask us. How can we start thinking about if you want to work at an international company, you want to work in an international location? There are lots and lots of questions around that. So my first question for you guys is, take 2-3 minutes, walk us through the thought process of how you made the decision of wanting to either work at the company or the country that you're in. Did you have any preference? What was your thought process like? Maybe we'll get started with Apurva first.
Yeah, I think for me, most of my decisions are like, personal satisfaction optimization, which is like, where do I think I'll be happiest? Almost like 5-6 years back, I pretty much just stopped focusing on my weaknesses. Like, I was just like, I can't improve them. Like, this is taking me nowhere. I have a few strengths, and how do I keep doubling down on them? Because that makes me happy. That brings out the best in me. So it's not just like about like job decisions or anything. Like, almost all my decisions are centered around, do I think like it takes me from where I am to do more of what I love and keep doing more of that. And from like each whether it's a job role or within the same company taking up new responsibility or product. It's been like, does this match with what I think I really want to do? And many a times I'm wrong. Like, I think this is great and I want to do this, and it turns out not like that. No regrets, go back to what you were doing before. So, like the decision to move to WhatsApp was also similar. The role was in commerce for emerging markets, something that I very strongly relate to. I understand it well. I relate to the customers. It was definitely outside India, something I had not done before. And it wasn't a very conscious decision to look for roles outside India. But it happened, like the role that I thought puts me, puts me at a place where I get to use my strengths every day, was based outside. It was based in London, which wasn't too far from India. So it was almost like, okay, what's the downside here to try it out? So that essentially was, what went into deciding that. And like, it can be a little scary in that sense. At least it was for me, because don't have family here, moved out of the country. My husband's still based in India, and we don't know, like for another year or so, things do still look quite fuzzy as to how we make that happen. But like these strengths, the opportunity outweighed it. Like it definitely was once in a while, where WhatsApp is investing in a space I was very passionate about. The team was great. The outlook was definitely going to play to my strengths. So like opportunities don't always line up, when you want them to line up, and this one came. So it was more like, okay, let's leave the fears, take a plunge and see. And I think my comfort was that coming back is always an option. So that happened. Today, I'm definitely glad I took that plunge. It's a lot of it's definitely opened my horizons more than what I would have estimated. But that's how I went about taking the decision, which is like aligned with my goals. I can always come back. Let's do it.
Nice. Did you think about, so you said you didn't make a conscious choice of actually wanting to apply to companies outside or being outside. It just kind of happened because you got interested in the space. Wow, that's almost like a dream come true for most people.
Yeah, I was reached out by recruiters. I at that point didn't know what this would turn out to be.
Nice. Mohit, what about you?
Yeah, sure. I think I have a very, very similar story as Apurva's. But 4 or 5 years back, I was watching this video by Professor Yunus Khan. I was a Nobel Prize winner from Bangladesh. In one line that he said really, really stuck with me. He says, if you want to learn how to hunt, learn from the lions, not from the hunters. And I kind of started thinking about that a lot. Like, where are the lions of product management? And unfortunately, back then, I think 4 or 5 years back, I just could not find enough people that I could learn from. So for me, the only reason for moving abroad was not actually, I was not looking out to move abroad. I was trying to find out where I can learn it the best. And then I had a list of 5-6 companies. I started applying to those. I did not have connections in any of those companies. And fortunately, I was able to make it to Spotify and Uber in Amsterdam. But really, like, I did not care if the company was in Stockholm or London or Burkina Faso. Like, I would have gone there anyway. So very similar story. A lot of my friends told me, like, London is still a very known place, right?
Yeah.
Like, I went to Stockholm, like, I don't know anyone from there, and people are like, "Are you crazy? It's like it gets to -12, -13." And I was like, look, if 10 million people can live there, I can live there as well. And if it's so bad, I'll just come back in 6 months. What's the harm? So it was really, this idea of how can I learn from the best? And I did not care what role I got, because I knew that, it's like how you got into engineering colleges in biotech, and then you think I'll study hard and get computer science. That was the thing for me. So I did not care about the role, what role they were giving me. I just wanted to be in the company and learn from people around, and probably then grow in my career. So that was the main motivation for me.
Nice. So you said you didn't have any choice for country. You basically started with the companies, and then you kind of just chase them wherever that opportunity existed.
Right.
Nice.
Right.
What about you, Vivek?
Yeah, so my situation is a little different. I'd, of course, grown up in India, gone to US for 13, 14 years, had come back to India for last 7. So wasn't really actively looking to leave India or any such thing. Maybe now, and I've not thought so deeply about this, Mona. Now that you ask me, I'm thinking aloud actually.
Yeah, yeah, please do.
But I would say, like, if there are 3 dimensions on which I evaluate any opportunity, right? One is, of course, the macro space. Is that like the domain that I want to spend next 5, 10, 15 years of my life? And this is a theory that I have, and many will disagree. I feel that, when the internet started, the first 10, 15, 20 years, like from 90s to maybe till 2005, it was all about ads. Like a lot of
Yeah.
very large, like, the Googles and Facebooks of the world were born, right, during that era. I feel the next 10, 15 years, a lot of subscription businesses were born, right? Like we have Netflix being the prime example, but across sectors, right? Like every sector is seeing subscription as a clear revenue model, right? And I think the next 10, 15 years, transactions, payments, fintechs, I think this space will grow. Like today, if you see, maybe 3 or 4% of global GDP happens online. Despite, we're talking about a digital revolution in India, but less than 1% of Indian GDP is online. And I think in the coming 10, 15 years, this number will grow multifold. It will be 30, 40, 50%. So I just feel this is a great space to be in, to learn, and maybe hopefully create value in. So I think that was one dimension. And other than that, I obsess a lot over culture and talent density. I think for good or for bad, I've been in companies that have really nice culture. I've been in Lala companies also. So after seeing both the spectrums, I have got that much more anal or obsessive about being in a company that, gives empowerment, where decision making is delegated, where you have autonomy and things. And I think talent density. If you're working with smart people, like Mohit said, right? If you are working with all smart people from whom you're learning, it's going to be a fun experience anyways. So yeah, I think those are the 3 filters I used and arrived at this opportunity.
But were you actively looking to move out of the country?
No, not at all. Not at all. I was really happy with MX and with Bain, and someone reached out, and it just
got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Nice. What about you, Gokul?
For me, it's a very different story. First of all, I hope you guys are able to hear me. My
little cracking a little bit. But
a little bit. Just a minute. Let me see if I can fix that. Just give me 1 second.
Sure. Sorry, guys. I only mentioned it because I know there are lots of gems and truth bombs that are going to get dropped right after this. I don't want you guys to miss it. It's very interesting that for you, most of you guys. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, thank you. So for me, it was a very conscious decision to go out of India. There was a major life event last year. We had a kid last Feb, and I was sort of reevaluating, hey, what do I want the next 5 years, 10 years of my life as a whole, not just from a career perspective, but also like, what do I want from my life? And I realized I wanted 3 things. One, I wanted enough sort of bandwidth to spend time with the kid as he grew. 2, I wanted to make sure I went to a company. I don't like looking at companies by name. I actually like looking at them by the stage that they're at. So I said, okay, I've built 0 to 1 products. I've worked at Gojek where I've seen scale. Probably the best place for me to put my skills would be some company in between that's in like a growth sort of phase. And so that and lastly, I realized that I wanted also enough bandwidth to sort of work on my own ideas to eventually start up like 5 years, 7 years later. And my hypothesis is we will move to a remote first world. So your geography is not gonna matter a lot where you start up from, especially software companies. So my theory was, okay, let's probably move out of India because I want the quality of life for the kid to be much better than what we had in multiple fronts. And I want to go get international exposure at a company that's growing really fast. And while Volt is not a household name, I mean, before they got acquired by DoorDash, I found that they were super interesting because even though not many people know them, they're actually operating in like 23 countries and 160 cities. And it was a mix of ops and product, and the role was like super interesting. And so I said, okay, let me apply. Obviously, I looked at other parameters like um, how far is it from India, for example, if our parents want to visit, what is like the purchasing power parity, because the crazy money, crazy opportunities are actually in India when you think about it. Like going to
Yes. Guys, this is an intentional pause, so you guys can really think about whether you want to go abroad or not, because really the crazy money is here right now. The market is out of whack. I have a lot of folks in Silicon Valley. I remember when I was there, the point of always moving back was, oh my God, you're gonna have to take a massive pay cut. Like, are you going to be able to? Do you think it's fine to do that? Now, when you think about it, it's literally translation of dollars with purchasing parity, which is very, very different from the US to India, right? So Gokul is absolutely right. The money definitely lies. I don't think money is now a reason for you to move abroad.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. My
Yes.
internet is a bit patchy. I'm really sorry.
No, but you dropped off at the exact same, the right point. You just made the point, and I was like, guys, this is an intentional break for you to pause and think whether you want to move abroad or not.
Yeah. So so money is there in India, and the opportunity.
I think Zoom doesn't like that statement. It's just like pauses right there.
Today, the talent is in India. For me, it was a very conscious choice. I wanted to move out for very personal reasons, and I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it.
So actually, related to that, I think the next question I have is, all of you kind of moved for either a sector or a problem statement. But now that you guys are working abroad, can we touch a little bit upon what are the benefits of working abroad? Like, what are the differences in your experience working in India versus working abroad? Because I think typically the thought process is, it's a better brand, a better company. I mean, if you think about the fintech problem statement, for example, that Vivek was mentioning, there are lots and lots of companies in India that are also solving that problem statement. And just by population of the world, 1/3 lives here. So like, you can think about, it's a massive at scale problem statement to solve. But what are some benefits of working abroad as you, and I think this is one thing that I want to kind of go in both tactically in terms of your day to day, but also from a career growth perspective, what does the opportunity today bring you 5 years down the line? If you work abroad, because I think a lot of people think about wanting to work abroad in the order of, okay, firstly, it feels nicer. We all feel like quality of life will be better outside. Sometimes that is true, sometimes that's not true. The second factor is typically, I'll get a better salary, work with smarter people. But I think a topic that is slightly unknown or doesn't have enough information is what are really truly the benefits of working abroad in terms of the immediate and the future career path opportunities. Gokul, maybe you can start since you had a very deliberate thought on wanting to move abroad.
Yeah. So what I see as benefit, basically the diversity of cultures that you work with. In India, all said and done, the mindset, the thought process, the way of working is not very different among people. Like for example, in my team, I have people from Brazil, Ukraine, Finland itself, some British people. And the way they think about life, the way they think about work, and how those cultures sort of come together, and you still generate output. Learning that has been like super critical. And secondly, India is a pretty hard charging culture, for better and for worse. But Europe is teaching me. I'm relatively new to Europe. I've been there only 6 months. But Europe is teaching me to sort of get the outcomes without being brash or sort of like burning people out. And I think that's going to be super valuable. If I say come back to India, maybe like 5 years, 7 years later, and I run a team here, I'll hopefully have learned how to get stellar outputs without burning the people out in the process. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most, and that's something that's already happening.
Got it. What about you, Vivek?
So I think it depends on what stage in your career you are. For example, I think if in early stages, first jobber, I definitely think that in some markets, like in US and some developed markets, quality of life from day one might be better than what India has to offer. As you rise in your career, I think that gap starts to diminish.
Yes.
And after a point, I would argue quality of life is better in India. If you are doing well, have created some amount of wealth for yourself, then the benefits that India can give, probably many other countries can't replicate. So I think depends really on where you are in your life. Even in terms of compensation, and you highlighted that yourself, right? That the gap is reducing, and now, in fact, many would argue wealth creation opportunities in India. Most companies are being valued at 100x multiple, right? I mean,
Yes.
if you are in the startup ecosystem in India today, the wealth creation opportunity could be dramatically more. I think the third point that Gokul was mentioning, that I agree. I think the mindset in India, people are more hungry, and that leads to working long hours. People are very ambitious. Everyone wants to shine out. And I don't think it's really about, and you can disagree, but I don't think it's really about finding a path to get the outcome in the limited hours. It's just a mindset issue. Yes, there is work-life balance in some markets outside India. But I think for the near future, I think India and China, I think that extreme long work hour culture, I don't think is going away soon. Again, it should not generalize. There are companies, I have been at companies who obsess over providing that, having employee empathy and providing that work-life balance and caring for everyone around you and not pushing everyone. And number of hours is not really a metric we look at. But yeah, I think still there is a slightly, life is a little harder in India in some ways.
What are the benefits of, let's say, if somebody is considering wanting to move abroad, what are some of the benefits in the short term and what are the benefits in the long term, assuming the person I'm talking about, the audience I'm talking about is people that are fairly early in their careers, like in the first 5 years of their careers?
Maybe I can say one or two things and then others can chime in. I do think that some markets are in a phase-wise a little ahead of India. Like whichever sector we look at, right? Like if you talk about Internet of Things, it's been around in US for 5 years. It may come to India soon. If you talk about 5G, like any tech change, I think India has a slight lag. So one clear benefit of working outside India is you become a lot more marketable. Like personally, when I came back to India, almost every job that I got, I had been there, done that. Like I'd already built the exact same product and already scaled it, and it was now happening in it. That wave had now come to India. So I think that could be one edge that one could get theoretically by working outside. Second could, of course, be quality of, probably product people have been around, product companies have been around maybe for 10, 12, 15 years in India. Product companies, for example, Bay Area have been around for 20, 25 years. So you see a lot of very seasoned talent and mentors from whom you can learn. So yeah, there could be some benefits of being in certain developed markets.
Got it. Apurva, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. And generally what happens, I think two things happen when you decide to work abroad. One is you're most likely going to join a large company while you're moving abroad. And that's like a dynamics we don't talk as much about. Reason being they're likely to pick you up, like they can afford paying for your visa, bringing you in. So you're likely to move to a larger company, which essentially like also aids the entire work-life balance dynamics, the diversity dynamics, which is not just to do with like moving abroad. Like for most of us, moving abroad means moving to a very large company. And it comes with its own pros, cons, and some of which is, like it will go back to how you see your own personal growth. And the reason is because I moved from very startup kind of environment to a large company, and like there are differences. Like you said, I was running Interact and I was the business lead for Interact. Like I started the product as it scaled. I had the opportunity of setting up all teams, right? And this was all in like span of 8 months. We went from, idea to like one of the fastest growing products in company's history, and where like NGOs are investor who's looking to now take this, like raise funds for this product separately. Which is a very different trajectory from what, let's say, my products at WhatsApp will do, the outlook they have, and what's like our biggest problem here. And all of that comes with like moving abroad to a larger company. But that was an important thing that I valued, that, hey, I don't know about this. How do things work at scale? Something I grew from zero to a scalable business in 8 months versus something, if I launch this button, 2 billion people are going to click on this in next 30 days, right?
Yes.
That's a very different mindset to have. And it's just mind blowing that whatever we think is like not used on WhatsApp is still used by 100 million people, right? So I think that is like one thing that will happen when you move to global companies, and it changes your perspective. And at least for me, that was like worth a lot more, at least in my journey as a PM, to experience than other things. Obviously, moving here, the work-life balance dynamic like has been amazing to watch. Like being a woman in India, I'd always been conscious of, how does raising a family with career works. And all of those barriers like just dropped for me here. I see my colleagues having 3 kids, thinking about a 4th kid, spending time with them. And one of the interesting things here is if your maternity leave is let's say 6 months long, your paternity leave is also 5 months long, right? So it's an equal gap for both parents. So it doesn't put like a particular parent at a different, pedestal than the other gender, which might sound trivial, but for me was definitely like, quite life-changing in that sense. Not something I look forward to coming here, but these are these dynamics that when you go to different culture, and I think very, very true for Europe, it's not even as true for America or even Southeast Asia. This is very, very specific about Europe. And I know this is like an inflection point for me as how I would view my life. Though I came for the scale of WhatsApp, what I could build here, things I could change here. I think the biggest thing that I'm actually gaining out of this is like my outlook towards life, and seeing like, I think both Vivek and Gokul mentioned just the diversity that comes in. It's very hard to say what that means, but like when one person on your team is from Brazil, one person is from Ukraine, one person is French, one person is Indian, you learn very different things, and your outlook at some point is like this mismatch of everything, which is very confusing because now you cannot see things in black and white. Simple things as, US says Crimea should be on sanction list. I have people from Crimea on my team. There's nothing wrong with them. So your outlook on a lot of things just changes very, very drastically. It looks very trivial, like it's very hard to understand what does this diversity mean. But I'm sure when you experience it, different people will soak things very, very differently. Like for me, like tolerance and patience is what got, accelerated in some sense. And maybe I latched on to those from different cultures, others will latch on to difference, but it will bring out something in you, which you want to enhance. And overall, like, you have more inputs to take different decisions in life. Like there are ways of leading life differently. Your outlook changes, and it will change towards things you care about. So let's say I care about family, money, and let's say career, and now have more inputs, like how different people who didn't have upbringings like mine, how they think about it. And it adds a lot of dimension, not just to like products you're building, but generally how you think about yourself. And it's quite enriching when you kind of go through it.
Nice. Do you guys think that having Apurva, you said something very interesting, which is most of the times moving internationally means you move to a larger organization. larger organization means it's a known brand. Having a known brand on your resume, do you guys think it opens up more doors because of that, or do you think it's sort of one step along the way? I know, especially in India, if you get a resume of a person who's had international experience, let's say at a brand like a Spotify or a Stripe or a WhatsApp, it definitely feels like they know the scale, the quality bar of the talent there. And I often tell people that early in your career, you should look for these step function kind of compounding indicators on your resume, because from there on, trajectory starts to change. I definitely experienced that at Airbnb. A lot of the people, I had worked at 4 other startups before that, but they were all kind of, before they got to scale, they got acquired, so they weren't known names. But when Airbnb became a known name, even if it opened many doors in the sense of your own perspective, but the size of your own perspective and the confidence in your own ambition, but also how people perceive you and the doors that kind of welcome you automatically without you having to make an effort. Do you think that is generally true early in your career as well?
100%. Yeah. Thing is, like, it's a data point. Like, if you go on LinkedIn, recruiters are filtering by companies, like they're looking for similar space, like wherever you say, like, your experiences are one, but like everybody is putting you in some we like it or not like it, people are putting you in a box, so, hey, you went to this college, you scored this much, people are already putting you in boxes, and a brand is a box. And there are ways, if you don't fit in a box, how do you do it? Like, how do you build your own brand? But they are generally longer, require more effort. You go out of your way, create your brand, show your work. Brands already do a lot of that heavy lifting for you, that, hey, if those guys interviewed you, you got through, you worked these many years, this is what your performance rating is saying, you probably like already proved yourself. So it puts you in a box, which people understand. So and like nothing to sugarcoat or not quote, but it's true, it happens.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, everyone's risk mitigating, right? You need to have some brands, either a premier engineering school or Harvard MBA, or worked in some top 2-3 MNCs. At some point in your resume, I think having a few brand names will change the trajectory, especially early on in your career.
Got it. I have a somewhat of a slightly tangential question, which is, I know for most of you, it kind of just happened. It wasn't a plan of getting there. But can you guys zoom into maybe a critical project, company, mentor? What led you to where you are today? Like, what were some of these turning points that folks that are early in their career can learn from and strive to kind of experience it themselves? Any thoughts on that? You think it was the role of a mentor? Was it a role of the company culture that you picked, the companies you picked early in your career, or the kinds of projects you got to work on that made you kind of ready for where you are today and be at such exciting companies?
Yeah, I think two things that I think sort of worked for me was, one, I was lucky enough to find a manager who always took a bet on me. Like 7, 8, 9 years back, when I was working at Accenture, sort of built the first version of Hotstar, which was not even called Hotstar back then. Nobody knew about it because it was not launched. The first name was iStar, actually. But I was lucky enough to find a couple of people who did not go by a brand name, who just went by the 1 hour conversation I had with them and took a bet on me. Said, okay, this guy, I exactly remember the line he said. It's like, you seem like a good seed. And I think that was one thing, like, I found somebody who really, like, took that bet on me. And the second thing is, now I think, now you have Upraised, where you can go and learn stuff. You have Mona to kind of guide you. Upraised and Mona didn't exist 6-7 years back, so it was much more difficult to kind of even understand what it is and what it looks like to kind of work abroad, right? So I think learning how to use LinkedIn effectively, I think, has changed my life. I've got almost all my jobs through LinkedIn. and through just writing people on. I don't mean to start spamming people, but there's a good way of doing that. Maybe that's a topic for another day. But I feel like when you start in a career, you don't really have so many connections. Like I did not know anyone in this in industry, but then I realized, okay, this is this platform. There are everyone here, and can I reach out to people here? So one thing which I did, which is like not very conventional, is usually people reach out to HRs for jobs. And I thought, what if I just reach out to the CEOs and the VPs? Maybe I'll have a better chance if I'm able to impress them. So one thing which I did for almost, and this is like when I joined the startups in India, I applied to almost 50 companies on LinkedIn. I wrote to their VPs and their CEOs instead of HRs, and I would write a one pager about each of those companies. So I wrote 51 pagers in like 3 months of time, and that took some really hard work. But without having a brand name, without having a sort of a mentor, without having a sort of a degree from a very 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 good IIM or business school, I was able to crack 2-3 companies. So that's why I feel like two things. Like one, like having someone who could take a bet on you. Usually your manager is good. And then secondly, learning how to use some of these tools that you have, like LinkedIn and like whatever you have, that is very very important. Like early in a career especially. But don't start spamming. Please. Don't spam people.
Yes, don't spam. Actually, that's a very interesting point. At Appraise, one of the things we're building and actively making it better is how do you tell your own story, right? And how do you I think networking is a very overused term. Networking does not mean the cold network that you have on LinkedIn. It actually means that you can reach out to somebody and get help or get connected. How do you write a cold email? How do you write a message? How do you ask for help? How do you sort of do stakeholder management up and down, right? What internally at Appraise we call as finishing school before PMs get placed, which I think is very important for you to kickstart your kind of journey, right? Very interesting point, Mohit. Actually, I think Mohit and I got connected on LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly.
Yes. Other thoughts, guys?
Yeah, so I think for me, it was more around inflection points and basically positioning. Uh, like, I don't know what I'm good at, but I know I'm good at positioning myself. What happened was when I was in my college, I was like, okay, I really want to start up, and I gave it 100%, and I ran a company for about 6 years. Not the most stellar of outcomes, but I learned how to build products and how to come up with creative solutions for that. And when I saw what was sort of the missing gap to sort of move forward in career at the end of that 5.5-6 year mark, I realized that what I don't know is how to operate at scale. And so I put operating at scale as like the goal for the next 2 years or so, and that's how sort of when I looked at a bunch of companies that I wanted to join, when I was looking at what to do after my startup, I even though I got better offers, better titles, better money, I still chose Gojek because of the brand, like Apurva mentioned, people use brands as proxies, like it or not. Hey, this guy is a Razor Premium, or this guy is a Spotify Premium, and the reason we are in this panel is because of the brand, like partly. Because there is some truth to that. It's because, like, hey, these people have gone to these places and are doing these things here, which means they are likely good. And to be honest, there is nothing wrong with it. It's a good proxy. And Gojek was a good brand, and I could learn processes and how to become an execution sort of machine, how to execute seamlessly in an organization where there are like tens or hundreds of stakeholders. That's what I wanted to learn. So how I positioned myself when I applied to Volt was, hey, I've seen both. I have done 0 to 1. I've done at scale processes. You guys need at scale. You guys need someone who can come in and put a method to the madness, and that's something that I'll be able to do. So this is how I positioned myself. So there is not one specific project per se, but 2 or 3 career decisions as such that I took over the years that sort of led to an inflection point.
Nice. Gokul is one of the most organized individual I know. He always has a goal at the start of every year. which is very, very inspiring. It's actually it's an art to learn for every single person. And I wish I knew Gokul sooner, and I could learn from him sooner, because I think at least early in my own career, I just kind of winged it. Whatever came to me and whatever I felt was good, I did it. But Gokul is one of the most deliberate individuals who kind of thinks through lots of things, and it's very, very amazing to actually learn that skill. I think even beyond what he said, I think if there's one thing I would tell people early in their careers as they're navigating it, just being more deliberate. Uh, Early in your careers, it's very easy for you to feel like to be on the more desperate side of like, oh, whatever comes my way, I'll kind of take it, rather than having the audacity to say no and saying this is my goal 5 years, and so I'm going to kind of stick to it, which is what what he was mentioning. Even though I had better offers, especially after a startup, whether it's salary, other things, knowing that this is what you want to do and kind of having the confidence to do that.
He's PMing his career.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is so meta. It's like a PMing his own PM career.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, Vivek, thoughts on this?
I can give an example from maybe early part of my career.
Yeah.
Mine was not so deliberate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
that's
super important, and I wish more people thought of longer term outcomes rather than.
I think there's a slight lag, maybe.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I was saying that I got a product role at Amazon Video. And
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine.
Go ahead.
So I got a product role in Amazon Video, and just at that time, Amazon ended up acquiring a company in Europe called Lovefilm, and it so happened that I got assigned to a task of doing post-merger integration for them, which in layman terms just means that Amazon believed that they have a secret sauce in product which needs to be copy pasted and applied to this new company that they have bought. So obviously, any B2C digital product has very similar underlying horizontals. Like there will be identity stack, there will be some big data analytics on top of which you'll do data sciences, recommendation, personalization, ad stack. So there are 3, 4, 5 underlying horizontals. So essentially, I had to study all of them, how Amazon does it, and then sort of replicate that for this company that they had acquired. So I think that gave me both the breadth, what are all in all the different aspects of digital product management, and also gave me a lot of depth. So I think that 1 year that I spent with Amazon Prime Video sort of just taught me so much that I think then it was step function growth from there on. So,
but how did you get to Amazon? I think that's the core question everybody's asking.
I think a lot of what everyone has said here, right? Just being, networking a lot and doing it correct. By the way, I agree with Mohit. I think for the first 15 years of my career, all my jobs were on LinkedIn, each and every. And since then, I think now it's through whatever executive search companies, but yeah, LinkedIn is a great tool. But for everyone, I think different medium works for different people, right? I've seen friends who do phenomenal job on Twitter in networking, creating a brand, in finding the right opportunities, in starting up companies. Some people do it through blogs. I've had someone in my team who's recently published a book. So I think everyone has their own path to getting visibility and getting their brand out there. You need to figure out what your strength is and then navigate.
Yeah, to add to that, I think Twitter is incredibly helpful. And the thing that to keep in mind is building a brand is important, but if people see that what you're doing is building a brand, the people are going to not trust you. So you need to be actually useful, actually make sense, and the building a brand sort of becomes the collateral benefit, not the main objective.
Yes. And that is especially true of PMs. Because it's unlike Bollywood, it is not how you look in dress. It is how you think. So it can kind of work both ways. And I think that's also one of the reasons why people fear saying anything on Twitter because they're not sure which way it is going to get looked, and that sort of is a hesitation of not kind of establishing a brand. But this is also one of the things that we found very early on at Appraised, which is most people's resume don't do justice to the skill that they have, and so we actually started putting in so much effort in helping them build a portfolio of their work, which can then substitute their resume, right? And I think that has been one of the core reasons why we've been able to drive outcomes and actually get people jobs, because that last leg of being able to translate, especially for people that don't have the brand boxes on their resume, right? How do you, you're out of the basic LinkedIn search of the recruiter. How do you get your foot in the door is through that work of, that portfolio. And it kind of, I think, resonates to the point of you have to do that extra work of writing that one pager to the VP or to the founder to be able to articulate who you are, what you're capable of, rather than just giving a simple connect LinkedIn request and hoping that they will connect and they will ask you, do you want a job? Like, I don't think that's going to ever happen. So got it. You guys are obviously hiring lots and lots of PMs. You guys are scaling your teams. What do you look for? This is what every single person wants to know. What do people, what do great companies, especially fast growing companies, look for? It's something people want to. There are lots and lots of people who are motivated to fill their gaps, who are motivated to work, but they don't have the directional navigation of where to go because they don't know what companies are looking for outside of whatever is mentioned on the JD. JD tends to be probably 50-60% reflection of what ultimately an individual gets evaluated on and ultimately hired on. So Apurva, what do you guys look for at WhatsApp?
Yeah, so actually across Facebook, if you see, right, like the center of everything Facebook does is like people, connecting people. So at least for Facebook and all like family of products here, it's very important to see if you have the ability to spot people problem and convert that into solutions. Like everything else is very, very secondary to what Facebook looks for. They always look for around you, can you spot people problem, which could be same as, hey, there's a single mother, she can't find nanny around her. It could be anything, but like, how can you like craft them and spot like problems of people around you? That's
finding
like
user pain points.
Yeah, and very, very specifically, like they don't bucket, like generally, like it's not so much about, hey, this is a customer, this is a merchant, because if you see, right, like these are all social media products. It's like, that's like the first criteria, like, are you great at spotting people problems? And then, converting into compelling solutions, which, because that's the space Facebook is in. And I think like, at least here I've seen people's love for Facebook products is also very important, because like all of these are products people like are already using. So it's not like, it's not working in a niche, hey, I don't order food from outside. It's not that, like everybody connects with friends and family. So that's again, something that is important. Throughout interview process, people are expected to know the products, they are kind of looking to interview for, or at least some section of products at Facebook, which might be something which is very, very specific to Facebook, but that's something I've observed, which is generally not said as much, but Facebook does expect people to be in love with like whatever product they're interviewing for. I'm crazy about WhatsApp. I'll just put it up front. Like I've built my last, I think since 2017, I've built all products in the WhatsApp space. And so are most of my colleagues, so there's definitely like a lot of like just love for the ecosystem.
I'm yet to meet somebody who's not in love with WhatsApp.
Yeah, and like Interact was business solution for WhatsApp, right? And before that, like all my products since 2017 are only on WhatsApp. So that's like the first thing that's kind of looked at. The other two things that are important at Facebook are, one is what's known as leadership and drive. So Facebook is a very bottoms-up culture. So individual teams have the right resources, and it's fundamentally built on the philosophy that people closest to the problem know the problem. So you're not expecting Mark to tap on your shoulder every day and be like, hey, go build this. You're expected to tell, Mark, we spoke to 20 people, here's a problem, or this is what we're seeing in data, which means they're definitely inherently looking for people. And this is true both across engineering and product, which is, do you have that drive to pull these solutions? If you spot a problem, will you care enough to take it to the finish line? Will you, take your viewpoint to others and, rally around it? So can you spot the right problem? Can you rally around it? And the third important one is, how do you collaborate with others? Again, because it's like a bottoms up culture, it's rarely happens that, hey, here's a product, here are 1,000 people, go build it. It's going to be, hey, here's a problem we have spotted. Here's a designer who cares about this. Here are 6 engineers who care about it. Here's our MVP. We want to take this to market, or can we get 3 months to build this out? So those are things that are which are fairly important, at least at Facebook. Spot the problem, have the drive to take it to finish line, be able to collaborate. And the thing is, in interviews, you should be able to demonstrate these. So that's the second part. You might be great at it. So it does need a little bit of some sort of preparation to look back at your experience and bring out those stories out, which bring out that, hey, I'm good at collaboration, but how do I tell somebody that I'm good at collaboration?
Yes.
They learn once I'm in the company, but
Yeah.
what was the last time you had conflict with your engineering partner? What was the last, you have to consciously definitely prepare and bring out those experiences so that you can share the most valuable, story from your last whatever years of experience and bring it out. And 45 minutes of selling yourself on each of those parameters. And these are the ones Facebook would definitely look for.
Fantastic. This is super actionable, I think, for folks that are thinking about getting into WhatsApp. What about you, Stripe? What about Stripe, Vivek?
I think a lot of what Apurv said applies to us also, right? I think obviously we look at product fundamentals, needless to say, user first mindset, being data driven, building hypothesis, all of that. Another, maybe, at least personally, one thing I look at is, can the person talk on diverse topics very confidently and as a knowledgeable, intelligent person, right? Across, not necessarily in tech, in any field, whether it's economics, politics, diverse. If he's just well read, thinks deeply, and cares about everything that he reads about or spends time on, then that shows, then one can feel more confident about the candidate. Second, I would say, at least for large multinational companies that have diverse talent, and especially as we are going remote, communication is important, both written as well as verbal. Ability to be very articulate, not ramble, right? Be precise. And I think the second aspect about communication is, once you have a diverse team, people who come from different cultures, have different contexts, can you build relationships? Because often product is about influencing outcome without having direct reporting or direct control. So can you very easily strike a rapport, build relationship, and influence and persuade others to do things in line with your vision? So I think these are the kind of soft skills that we would probably look for.
Got it. What about Spotify?
Yeah, I think we have a slightly simpler approach to hiring. I think there are 2 types of skills. Type 1 skills that can be taught, and type 2 skills that can't be taught. So we tend to focus more on type 2 skills for interviews, because we believe that everything, including communication and which tool you use for road mapping, all the 56 million frameworks, all of that can be taught. There are 2 things which we believe cannot be taught. One is, and we don't talk about this particular skill often in product management, it's creativity. I love working with people who have come from very diverse backgrounds. When I was working in India, I think 70% of PMs in my team were engineers. When I work here, I have people who never went to school, people who have studied filmmaking. And it's creativity does not just mean Bollywood movies, it's creativity every day in your work. I think that is one thing that we really look for. And the second thing is also kind of a counter, it might not be very sort of a very common thing to hear, is about we actually look for people who have an intuition and who have believed that what I'm saying, people having a worldview, right? What by that I mean, look, data is good till a point, but you have to have your intuition, you have to believe in that, and you have to make 10 people follow in that belief. Like I take examples of, like, last night I was talking to a friend, and I was giving an example of the religious founders, like Jesus and Muhammad and Moses. Like they had a worldview, right? And they were able to make billions of people follow their own worldview. I see PMs as that. Like you maybe not at that scale, but at a very mini scale, you got to have a worldview, and you got to make some people follow that, and also be humble enough to know that you're not going in the right direction, kind of change from that. So I would say when we look at people, we don't look too much into how well they speak, how well they are with the frameworks. We look at things that cannot be taught, which are how much do you believe in intuition? Are you humble enough to kind of change your point of view? And the most important thing is creativity. Like, are you really creative? Like, give me examples of things that you have done where you have really been creative and done something different. So we tend to like focus a lot more on that, with the belief that all the other things can be taught once you're in the company.
Got it. Gokul, what about Volt and Gojek?
Yeah, so I'm setting up a lot of these hiring processes at Wolt, which is basically what I wanted to do. So a lot of my thoughts are derived from Gojek, which was basically, there are a couple of types of skills. Like everyone said, there is hard skills, and then there is the not hard skills, the soft skills. Hard skills is obviously, like Vivek mentioned, it's the standard stuff. Can you think through product? Can you think through data? Can you think through user research? But what I personally look for is ownership. Can you own outcomes end to end? Have there been examples where you demonstrate that? Second is about intellectual humility. What are the things that you changed your mind on? Because that's something that you're going to do as a PM every day. Lastly, I think interviews can be prepared for very well. So there is actually a type of there are people who do interviews really well, but they're not like really good hires. The positive side is I want to use that to my advantage and see if there are people who can craft a very good story. An interview, like Purva mentioned, is about selling yourself. Can you sell yourself really well? Are you a really good storyteller? And these are some of the softer aspects that I look for, in addition to like being super data driven, being customer obsessed. One question that I ask is, what was one thing that you fought for? It doesn't matter whether you won or lost in your last company, where you fought for the customer and said, hey, this is not in the customer's best interest. Because almost all organizations sort of like have that slippery slope where they go and do something in the interest of the business at the expense of the customer. There needs to be some PM who's customer obsessed, who has that conviction to stand up and say, hey, this is not right for our customers. Have you done that? And that's a question that I like to ask.
That's amazing. Actually, we're just going to open up the floor for questions because we're already at 5 p.m. We're going to, I hope you guys have another 10 minutes to spare. If you're not, let me know. But the first question is from Bharat Singh. He's a product manager with 3 years of experience. He wants to know what is the immediate step he can take to achieve his goal of moving to a fintech in the fintech space abroad, preferably UK. This is actually also for the larger audience. What is the first immediate step they can take at the end of this session, according to you guys, to, if their goal is to go abroad, what is the first thing they can do?
Talk to Mona.
Yes, you guys can all come talk to me, but you guys can also start to figure out where your gaps in your product skills exist. As they said, one of the most important things is to be able to tell your story, and I cannot emphasize enough, even with people with 5-7 years of experience, when you just ask them the first question, tell me a little bit about yourself, that first impression that you build either is a bomb and it takes you very far, or you really bomb it and you've kind of ended the conversation right there. Practicing that is extremely important. We actually do mock interviews just for this purpose. Like, I tell every single person who is very serious about getting, if you have a shot at the company of that you've been dreaming about, that the least thing you can do is actually go very prepared there. You're only going to have 1 or 2 shots there. You're not going to have multiple shots. You can't wing it. You have to put in the effort. And this was one thing that actually struck me about Gokul. My first conversation with Gokul was about this, and he told me he had done 50 mock interviews before he actually got to Gojek to his interview. For someone as accomplished as Gokul, for all that he had already learned by being a founder for 6-7 years, spending the time and effort to actually do 50 mock interviews is tells you the kind of rigor you need to crack into companies of that caliber if you really are serious about getting there. But yeah, guys, what is one immediate action they can take?
Look who's hiring. Just go on LinkedIn, see who's hiring. Fintech hiring. So London in general is hiring a lot. Like it's like a good place if you're looking to move in. Reason being US visas are hard. All big tech is moving a lot of their headcount to London. It's probably easier to get hired in London today than in Bangalore. Just how fierce Bangalore is right now. So just go look for it. I know Revolut is hiring like crazy, specifically in fintech. In London, Free Trade is hiring. All of them have raised recently. So I would say just check out who's hiring, who's closest to what you want to do, and just shamelessly apply. Definitely look for referrals when you're applying. And like Mona said, interviewing is an art, needs preparation. Doing your work and getting through interview can be two very different things, and they need their own preparation.
Maybe I'll add 2 things to this, in addition to everything else that's been said. One, I'll sort of echo Mohit's thing that if you have, firstly, it's great that you have this clarity. You know the domain, you know the location. So now all you got to do is read up about that domain. Like how Mohit said, right? He read about 50 different companies. He wrote 1-pagers. I think very impressive, I must say, Mohit. And I think I would strongly advise that if you have clarity about fintech, go find out who are the top companies in fintech who operate in UK, read up about them. If you have the time and drive, then possibly write 1-pagers on some of them. The second, very hygiene thing, but I just remembered something I definitely did, and I think has been said here. I actually used to write script for many of my answers, then record myself, then hear myself and judge myself. And I think iterating like that has helped me. And I remember at that time when I was looking for my first PM role, I used to actually write 5-6 different scripts for each story that I want to tell, and then see if that particular story fills, what skills shine out. So if someone asks me about skill A, skill B, skill C, then which story will I pick? And that's sort of in Excel, I used to actually map it out, that if someone asks me about skill A, B, C, then story number 3 applies. And then I would have that story written in a certain framework. I used to call it a STAR framework, where you first describe the situation, then describe the tasks and actions that you took, and then some quantifiable results or metrics on which you can say whether you succeeded or did not succeed, or what learnings were and how you can do better. So I think having that structured process to hone your interviewing skills is super important.
Yeah.
There is no skipping there is no skipping the work.
Yeah, exactly. So interviews are looked at as a measure of skills. They're actually a measure of preparation. This is something that I keep telling Mona as well in our conversations. And I wish more people internalize this. So for your specific case, build your proof of work, like Mohit and Vivek suggested. Write 1-pagers, write a strategy doc, write a PRD for a feature that they could implement. Send it directly to the hiring manager. You can't be someone who sort of doesn't stand out. You're taking an extreme shot, so you have to take extreme measures as well. Like as someone who needs to stand out, just email the hiring manager, hey, this is what I'll be working on, and I think this is super exciting. And then it becomes a question of so first you get your foot in the door, which is by building proof of work and doing reach without spamming people. You can email the hiring managers, you can email interesting senior leaders at the company, especially if it's a smaller company. And once you are in the door, interview prep is all that's going to matter. And for that, like Vivek's script, I don't know, Mona, if you remember, but I told you about me recording "Tell Me About Yourself" like 100 times, and getting that story sort of right. It's the first question.
Yeah, it's absolutely the first question that gets asked in every single interview. And I will say,
and while I did like 40 mock interviews before Gojek, after Gojek, Mona, sorry, go on.
no, sorry, go ahead. There was a lag, so just.
Yeah, so after Gojek, I did like 50 mock interviews, 60 mock interviews before I got into.
I think a lot of
you got to take it really seriously.
Yes, guys, there is no shortcut to work. If you have the intention, you have the intent. Put in the effort. In the world that we live, you have LinkedIn as your network. Give that a shot first. If you, like I said, interview prep is extremely important. That was the whole objective with which we started Prepa, which is the interview prep product. Actually, Gokul is one of our mentors. You can do a mock interview with him to get some feedback if you're looking for help. So that's that. There are a bunch of questions in that regard, so I'm going to kind of skip over those because they will have similar answers. The second question is, do you look at PM as a possible remote job? Is it possible to be a remote PM?
My take on this is okay. Go for it.
I know companies who do that. I don't know how effective it is, but I do know companies who hire remote PMs.
I think it has to be a hybrid. It is like it's possible to be remote for some part of product development, but brainstorms remotely just are terrible. Like you can't go through the design process remotely. You can't go through the UX research remotely. You don't gain the same. So we actually are doing a remote so a hybrid version of remote work in our team. So all our design brainstorms happen in office versus if you are in a very execution, IC kind of a mode, people kind of work remotely. And I think it's definitely like remote is figurable, but definitely needs to be in the same time zone. The tax of coordinating with people outside your time zone is very high for product development and not something I would advocate for at all. Though I started working remotely much before COVID. I think I went remote sometime in 2018 because traffic in Bangalore was just terrible. I couldn't see myself spending 2 hours in traffic every day. But there also we had this hybrid mode where all our brainstorms were definitely in person, which would typically mean like 1 day per week of FaceTime versus if we were just executing, were in like IC roles across the team and everybody was on the same time zone. So I think like a pure remote for product management, it's just not as fun. Like even if somebody makes it happen, it just doesn't look as much like fun to do. I don't know how others feel, but I feel very strongly about this one.
Yeah. Mohit, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I have very similar thoughts as Apurva. I think there are two main things. One is, again, the stage of the project for discovery, like early phase. I think definitely it helps if the team is in one room. You just so much more productive and effective. And second is also about how much time you have spent with the team overall. So I have spent, like, I've been working with the similar team for the same team for like last 1 year. So we have a kind of a repo that works if you're working remote. But if I'm a new PM, I don't know anybody. I think building that trust with people and building that, personal relationship with people is very, very, very hard remote. So I'm also not a very big fan of remote PMing. Given a choice, I would not do remote at all. So
got it. There's another question, which is what is realistic turnaround time for an initial job hunt to get to move to an international location? This is also one of the things that makes people very anxious. They don't know if everybody goes through a 6-month time frame or a 1-year time frame from when they start having a conversation to the visa process to actually moving, or is it in weeks? Is it in months? Is it longer than a few months? And then people cannot plan or get anxious. Any sort of benchmark timeline that you guys can share?
For me, it took 6-7 months, but this was again 4-5 years back. So I hope our processes have improved since then.
Got it. What about you, Apurva? Yours is
I
probably
haven't
more recent.
seen anybody less than 3 months. Mine was very different. I had a 6-month notice period, and then there was like COVID wave 2 happened in between. I had wanted to delay because of that. We couldn't hire my replacement. So like I definitely I put my paper in Jan, and I joined in August. So you can see it's almost like a year. But I think it typically takes around 3 months, like for most people, at least for UK. It takes 8 to 10 weeks for your visa to get approved. And typically, if you're moving countries, you'll want some time to wrap up your stuff locally. So 3 months definitely post.
3 months is minimum, can go up to it.
It ends up taking, and it'll fly by, like it'll not feel like 3 months. So there's like stuff to be done.
Actually, I have seen a very broad range. I think Europe, I've heard a lot of 3 months. US, back in the day when one could get H1 easily, I've heard people wait till the next year, October, right? Like 9 months, 10 months, when again, you're eligible for the H1. In Singapore, it is super fast. Like I got my work visa in 2 days. Right, in the middle of COVID, and I was surprised. Like the company said it takes a month, but apparently they do it in 2-3 days. So it really depends, I think, and depends on the country also.
Let's get
3 months.
ASAP.
3 months is standard, I think. For me, first interview to moving was 3 months during COVID. Maybe without COVID, it may have even been faster, but then Volt also moved really, really fast. But yeah, everybody I speak to is like 3 to 4 months is the bucket.
Got it. Second very common question in many chats I'm just going to lay out was, what is the probability of somebody who is moving into product management for the first time to get a product management job abroad? Very low.
I don't have a lot of perspective on it. Like WhatsApp does hire like very like mid to senior level roles only, like don't have opening positions. So you definitely would have like 3 to 4 years of experience before joining WhatsApp. And just because WhatsApp is slightly complicated, like it's like end-to-end encrypted, you don't have data. So you like a lot of that intuition, which ends up coming a little late in your career. But I know Facebook does hire APM roles, but internationally might still be difficult. They might still be filling it from within the company versus looking internationally. But I don't have a lot of perspective on industry in general.
We
generally seen. Sorry, go ahead.
And APM roles, but I think for internships, the problem is we don't sponsor visa for 3 months. So that is a problem. But then we have APM roles open, which is a very good way to start your career, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty challenging because companies typically tend to hire mid-senior or even only senior positions internationally. But this is probably me being the deliberate me. The question really is, do you want to do it or should you do it? Because changing career paths is very challenging. Changing a company is also challenging. Changing a country is very challenging. So you're just complicating life by adding more and more unknowns. I would, even if you could do it, I would strongly recommend it.
Yeah, and I also think that in general, what ends up happening is because the processes are so long, it takes 6 months, 9 months. In that duration, you can actually get started and start learning and experiencing product management in India. You don't have to wait to just get an international job. It's wasted effort of time. So highly, strongly recommend, get started. Don't think this is your first and your last job. It's only getting started. Like, just make progress. I think that is the most important thing without kind of wasting time. Guys, we are already at 5:15. Thank you so much for joining us. Lovely chat. Best part of my Saturday today. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I hope people found value out of this. We'll share the recording on YouTube for later reference. I'm sure there are lots of nuggets of information that are actionable that people can kind of reference and as they think about, if they think about moving abroad. One last question to close. What do you miss the most about India?
Food. And how cheap it is.
Yeah. I mean, I came here yesterday and I'm like, Italy at 10 rupees. Oh, wow, that's less than €1. And it's like 10 euros in Germany. I'm like, okay.
London has great food scene, but it's still not the same. Like it's still
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah.
And I think like this time I went to India and I was like this maniac who's not eaten ever. You know, morning, lunch, dinner. You just like so that's there. I don't know if it gets old, but food in India is,
Yeah.
and I think a little bit of the energy as well. Like Bangalore definitely has
Yeah.
very, very exciting culture at this point. Europe, you'll see a lot of like outside tech, like you have a very wholesome ecosystem. You want to enjoy theater, you want to enjoy arts, like you'll get like different flavors of life. But if you only want to enjoy tech, I think it's still hot in Bangalore compared to like not true for US, but definitely, you know, Europe is still living its own pace of life right now.
I would say extended family also.
Yeah.
The whole support system that one has in India. So
Yes.
And
Well,
the celebrations that come with that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. We'll share the recording, and if there are any specific questions for folks, we'll reach out to you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much for
Thank
having
you
us.
guys.
Everyone, thank you for
Bye.
having us.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Guys, we have another event on the 12th and the 26th of March. Please sign up if you're interested. Again, point is to provide value. So please RSVP if you're interested. Thanks, guys.
Mona, I think we can log out now.
Yeah, cool.